Okay. Thank you very much for welcoming us to this session of the African Biodiversity seminar series. We are going to be talking today about the Tana River Basin Biodiversity Information System. I will give an introduction, and Kevin will go into user experience, and Peter will go into the technical overview. So this is a project whose goal is to develop a freshwater biodiversity data and information system for improved ecosystem management and development planning. And we have a number of objectives. And the first objective was for partners to recognize the importance of sharing data. The second is to mobilize and publish data from existing sources. And the third was to do some field work, although very limited, to assess the current state of biodiversity, and also to assess what's happening on the ground, and also to develop an interactive portal which will bring together the biodiversity data together with other types of data so that they can be visualized, they can be used by different types of users. And of course, it has a component on outreach and capacity development for future sustainability. So we are working with a number of partners, and these partners were selected because of the role they play in the management of the ecosystem in the Tana River Basin, also in research, water conservation, also in developing the region. And of course, we needed an IT partner to help us with developing the portal. Our partners are Tana and Athi Rivers Development Authority. This was an important authority that was set up to take care of the Tana and Athi River basins. Athi is another basin which is close to Tana. And the Kenya Wildlife Service, they are in charge of managing of all the wildlife in Kenya. Kenya Forest Service in charge of managing all the forests. The Kenya Water Towers Agency, they are in charge of managing water sources so that they are well conserved and sustained. And then Water Resources Authority, that's a regulatory agency that deals with water in Kenya. And then Nature Kenya, that's an NGO dealing with the conservation of biodiversity in Kenya, and then Upande, who are our technical partner. So the Tana is in southeastern Kenya, as you can see on the map. It's the largest river basin in Kenya, about 95,000 square kilometers, and the longest. About 1,000 kilometers, and therefore it covers about 22% of Kenya, and it goes through many counties. Counties in Kenya are devolved subnational governments. So you have different subnational governments which are in the basin, and they really need to work together. And these have come when the Athi and Tana Development Authority had already been set up. So these only came in 10 years ago with the new political rearrangement in Kenya. And of course, that also creates another challenge, because you had an overall body, and now you have self-governing subunits which look at themselves as independent, and sometimes they are not very keen on collaboration with the other units. So The basin is generally divided into three regions. The upper catchment in the area here. This is based on the elevation. So anything about 1,000 meters is the upper catchment. It is goes into alpine areas of the Mount Kenya, and this is where most of the water that flows into the basin comes from. And these are mountains, a lot of forests, and most of them are protected areas. And then you have the middle catchment or mid-Tana. This is a heavily farmed area. It's fertile, plenty of water, rainfall also, and it is highly populated and therefore under a lot of strain. And then you have the lower Tana. This is all areas under below 3,300 meters. And it goes all the way up to the Indian Ocean where the Tana flows. So you start off in a very forested area with a lot of water, high elevations to lower areas between 300 meters to 1,000 meters. And then you go below and it's almost arid, and some of the water is actually a major problem. So you have more of herders and other activities that can thrive in dry areas. So the basin is ecologically and economically significant because it has diverse habitats, it has a very high biodiversity, it has 12 protected areas, lots of red-listed species and cited species, endemic species, important for ecotourism. The ecosystem supports millions of livelihoods, over 11 million people. It supplies a lot of water. In fact, over 80% of drinking water for Nairobi comes from this basin, and it contributes about 32% of the national water needs in Kenya. It's also a major source of electricity. 70% of power comes from this basin, and this is quite significant. And also food production, very important, large-scale irrigation scheme. There are also many projects developed under the National Vision 2030 projects, which some of them are really grand, and they really will need the support from these basin, either in terms of water, in terms of many other resources. And so these are some nice images from the area with the children with fish. You have lots of big mammals, you have dams, you have unique plants, millipede here, which we think is a new species, very unique primates endemic to the area. And so there is actually an primate park in the area, and it is quite unique because of its endemic wildlife. So we have many types of rivers in this basin, ranging from seasonal to permanent. So in the heavily forested in the upper areas with a lot of rain, you have permanent rivers which are large, plenty of water. Then as you descend, you get rivers that are flowing in more drier areas, and they also flood quite often. And then you get dry rivers where you only get water underneath sometimes in the year, like here. And of course, the people, local people living in the area know what to do when all the water has disappeared from above. They simply dig a little bit below, They know where to dig, and they get water like what you see here, which they use for drinking and also for their livestock. And then you have also many dry riverbeds, which, if you have worked in such areas, they can be death traps, because you never know when water is going to come, and it can rain like even 300 kilometers away. And if you are not monitoring the weather and you simply start walking in these riverbeds, you can get swept away very easily, because when the water comes, it comes with a lot of energy and vigor, and it's a lot, and you'll be swept away. So when we started this project, we did a user needs survey to understand the users, and also to know what is it that they would like to see. And I will just present some of the results in terms of what the users, potential users and stakeholders told us. They identified different types of data that would underpin good ecosystem management and development planning. And they thought they would really love to have biodiversity data, ecological and habitat data, land use and cover data, climate data, physiography data, water resources data, including hydrology, socioeconomic data, population and demography, and many other wishes. So our job also was to try and see, okay, from the wishes, what is it we can provide, or what is can be prioritized so that we can provide and meet the user needs. We were also looking at what are some of their concerns and barriers in terms of sharing data and information. And they gave quite a number of barriers that would hinder them, or that they were concerned about. And they range from people fearing about people stealing their data. Others will make use of their data before they do, or institutions don't have data and information sharing policies. Others say they don't have technical skills. Others feel like they have no time to engage in data sharing and information sharing. And few said that they really don't have interest. And so it's important to understand these barriers, because then it through working in the project, some of the things we were doing is to try and break down these barriers, so that the end users can feel comfortable to share data and information. For biodiversity data, we have many sources. These were published reports and published papers where people could extract the data, data in files, indirect data, like looking at wildlife stool, museum data. Of course, being a museum, we have the advantage of having a very large storage of already existing data, historical, and then also from the internet, data sets that people had worked on, but they are not made accessible. And obviously also doing some field work, like you can see here out in the field, so collecting some data, new data to bring into the system. We had to look at biodiversity data standards and fair principles, and promote these standards and all these way of working, so that people know that they should follow international standards. If they are working with biodiversity, they should follow biodiversity standards. If they are working with other types of data like water, if they provide, they must follow international standards. And we would like to the data to be fair, it should be findable, it should be accessible, it should be interoperable, and it should be reusable. So for biodiversity data, of course, we use the Darwin core standards, and for metadata, the GBIF metadata profile. To date, we have 13 datasets from the project which have been published to GBIF, because one of the important things we thought is that any data that can also be hosted somewhere else, which is dedicated to that kind of data, for example, by occurrence data in GBIF, it would be important because it's like also security. In ours is just a project, only started when JRS funded us, but GBIF is going to be there probably much longer, and it's better funded, so we can as well have this data sitting somewhere else and still be visible through our project and be used in other ways. So this data is now publicly accessible, and you can access it if you use if you search our project. And they comprise about 27,000 records. Coming to the portal design was a user-centered design, the UCD, which a lot of the technical people know about, which involves empathizing, whereby the developers should personify the end users and understand us, and also defining, pinpointing what we the end users want, ideating, selecting solutions, prototyping. For example, here, this image, we were doing some prototypes of what we would like, and then testing. So it's hoped that using this philosophy of the user-centered design, then the user needs are met, and the developers are not doing their own stuff, and the users are left behind. So we have a portal which Kevin and Peter will go into. It's still a work in development, and I will leave it so that my co-presenters talk about it. And I will move on to outreach, training, and capacity development. This was a very important objective for our project, and we have held workshops, we have done data publishing, which is really hands-on capacity building in terms of working with data. We have data paper manuscripts we are working on. Of course, we have also attended conferences. We have done a lot of networking, and networking has been important, especially with the policy people, or people who are actually to have use this data in other ways that we don't know. And we actually got people in the Ministry of Environment to know about our project, and it was quite nicely referenced in the National Biodiversity report to the CBD. And also we have had a more specialized capacity development with the smaller groups, whereby when we identify a capacity need with a group and we know it's something narrow, then we just work with a small group, and we exchange ideas and work together and build the capacity. So, of course, this kind of projects has challenges, which I will mention a few. We have had a steep learning curve, in fact, for most partners, and some of them are technical. Others are the issues of working with different data types, because many times we are trained in particular areas, and also when we move out of our specialized areas, and we feel uncomfortable. But that is really how this kind of project can make an impact, that it requires people from different specializations. It should be multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary, to bring knowledge and everything together, because they are all affecting each other in this kind of basin. There is also institutional and individual cultures and practices in the data sharing and management, which are not very conducive to this kind of project. And especially when people are not open to share data, or institutions don't have cultures and practices of sharing data, or have no policy, it creates a lot of challenges, and we have had these challenges. Also, in building the portal, there is the issue of balancing between generalization for just general users and details for specialized users, because you want to have something for everyone, and where do you get the right balance so that all the end users are served. But we also have opportunities, we have had opportunities in terms of localizing of tools built on international standards, so that we can address local needs. Also, there is the capacity development in data mobilization, management, publishing, also working in a multidisciplinary collaboration, because as I mentioned earlier, we are many partners who generally work with different mandates, but this project has created a nice conversation of working together. Also, this project creates communities of practice that can sustain the supply and demand for data, because that's important. People will only work on something or use something if there is this demand, and also the demand and supply reinforce each other. So there has to be a demand. So when you are doing something, you are trying to give to a need, and then of course there is also a demand, and then of course increasing data availability and capacity to use that data helps to influence the policy and decision making. So at this point, I would like to acknowledge all our partners and the project funder, JRS, and of course the Freshwater Research Center, in particular Helen, for being at the forefront in organizing the Freshwater Biodiversity in Africa seminar series, because it's really helping us to learn from those who are more seasoned, and also building a community in Africa that can actually address the challenges that we are seeing. And thank you.